league tables. So they identify the children, and instead of funding resources into them, they exclude them. And then instead of looking at those issues, what it is oh, these people are criminals, they need to be locked up.
Okay. So you spoke about kind of structural kind of racism in some of the institutions in the borough, but do you think those kind of do you think institutional racism exists for media organizations as well?
Yeah. It does because media organizations tend to self-select, self-recruit in order to basically be a journalist and get the heads up. You need to come from an affluent family. So someone who now goes to university, say does a university journalism degree, they end up with debt. That debt needs to be paid off. They don't have the luxury of doing internships or being a freelance journalist wandering around the courts and pick up stories. Whereas someone from an affluent background has that luxury of basically spending time to build up their skills and making those connections. And you see that in politics as well. So we have an issue in the Tahams Labour Party where the party traditionally has been controlled by rich affluent individuals who had the luxury of inherited wealth or their parents to actually not work, build those connections and have a political career. Whereas people come from a much more poorer background, don't have that. And they self-select from their own thingy in terms of promoting individuals, etc. So it's similar structures.
As part of this study, I kind of uncovered that the discourse in politics can exacerbate Islamophobia. What do you think? Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. And you see that in Tahammats. So Muslims seem to be corrupt. So this is the weird thing about Lutfur Rahman. So I'm just using that as an example. Lutfur Rahman was disqualified out of office for electoral offences. He wasn't corrupt. So there was an audit, and I'm saying this as a Labour Party member, and I never voted for him. There was an audit, he was cleared, there was a police investigation, was cleared, so there was nothing corrupt. What happened was, in the recent election when I got elected, the day before, letters were given to mainly non-Muslim residents in my borough, which I kicked up a fuss and in the end I refused to deliver them, which basically said, do you want to wake up and have corrupt Lutfur Rahman in the mayor's office? A, he never got convicted for corruption. B, he wasn't even running. But you had the Labour Party playing those tropes.
Would you think it was Islamophobic?
Yeah, it's the dog whistle politics.
And do you think,
the racist fella?
while we're talking about Lutfur Rahman, do you think the accusations of extremism were founded?
No, he never was an extremist. If you look at his background, he basically worked with the left in the party. So he was part of this think tank, race think tank. We had Joe Ejiofor, who's the current leader of Harrogate Council. We had Umesh Desai, who's the GLA. Remember Kamal Jandu, who's the political officer for the GMB. Shana Fayaz was there in that organisation. She's the current mayor for New York. So he came from a race left-wing background. None of those individuals have any links with extremism. Lutfur came out of that political culture. So again, it's basically it's just tropes that we used against them.
So there's been particular focus on Tower Hamlets Muslim community in the British press and media for many years. A majority of the articles kind of depict the Muslim community quite negatively. Why do you think that is?
It's because the Muslim community here, and I'm saying it as an outsider, so I just want to explain my background. I wasn't born and brought up in Tower Hamlets. I grew up in a town called Bedford, which is a market town. And what it is in Tower Hamlets, the way the setup is, there isn't proper political representation or articulate political representation to speak on behalf. You don't have voices in the local media. There isn't articulate representations in the bureaucracy. There isn't articulate representation in terms of the main economic players. So, for example, Canary Wharf or City of London, etc., which have a massive influence on the borough, or in terms of public services like the police or the NHS, in terms of Muslim representation. Because you don't have that articulation, what it is people put voices, other people speak for them. The people who write about it, who tend not to be from that community, tend to basically put words into the mouths or etc. And they just run with their own prejudices. That's what it is. And that's why it's a convenient community to kick. Also because its proximity to the centres of power, it's just basically you don't have to travel that far. You just have to move down the road and basically take a picture and then write about it.
Okay, so what you're saying is kind of proximity also is a factor then.
That's why it's written about, because it's basically on the district line to Westminster. So a lot of the decision makers in Westminster live in Tower Hamlets. So a lot of people who make decisions, a lot of people who write, actually live in Tower Hamlets. They don't interact with these people, so it's a convenient thing. So they think they know them without knowing them. If you ask them, and I know that because my ward is kind of interesting in the sense that it has really affluent parts. So I've got a BBC political editor who lives in my ward, and across the road from her you've got social housing. But I know for a fact she doesn't talk to those people, and I basically, because I canvassed, and people on her side of the road don't speak to the people across the road who live in the social housing. And again, and I've knocked on doors. We have people in Parliament, etc., who live, but they don't have interactions with the social housing block that's across the road. And so I know from experience that they think they know about these people. They see them every day, but they don't actually have interaction. But then there isn't articulate voices to actually interact with them. But it's changing now, but yeah.
Just coming back to Tower Hamlets and the media coverage, Tower Hamlets is obviously home to the East London Mosque, which is one of the largest mosques in the country, which has been attacked in the media and press in the past for kind of harbouring extremist views. Firstly, do you think that assessment is true? And secondly, based on those kind of media reports, we've seen kind of an increase in far-right activity in the Whitechapel area in Tower Hamlets. Yeah. Do you think that somehow has played a part in the increase in tensions in the borough?
I think it hasn't been proven that the mosque has extremist views. If it did, then politicians wouldn't be beating their doors. And I know that for a fact. I know my senior colleagues always run 2 events at the mosque. I was a recent one where they were all there. So that's what it is. But I think again the mosque is a convenient symbol to attack. It's quite visible. Again, it's proximity to the centres of power. and it's kind of it's well organized.